Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
It's going wonderful. Getting a lot done here at the end of the week because of this very unique Kentucky ice weather that we got. Big sheet of ice blanketing everything. Gotta love the weather here. What about you, Raphael? How's it going over there?
Yeah, no, same. I'm kind of hunkered down at home. I'm not trying to venture out too much. And it is very much a unique thing in Kentucky where you start seeing ice falling from the sky and sticking to the road and causing a lot of people to just kind of lose their mind when it comes to driving. I mean, it can be very, very dangerous. And hopefully, this weekend it starts to warm up a bit so we don't have such icy conditions out there. And luckily today we didn't have an icy conversation at all. It was a very warm and really enlightening conversation with Emmanuel Lavoie. He's actually the CEO of JetStream, which is a hospitality technology platform, which I think is going to be a game changer going forward, in particular for those individuals who are looking to do something on the property management side. And so, during the conversation today, we learned a lot about his background. He actually was an engineer by trade and then got into, the hospitality and technology business. He talked a little bit about what that transition point looked like in his life. He didn't like what he was doing before. And, he kind of took a leap of faith without really knowing whether or not it was going to work. And luckily for him, it's worked out immensely well. And so he joined the Leave.com company in 2015 with one of his good friends. And they scaled it through venture capital and then eventually sold it to a large corporation in the United States. And then after COVID hit, they had the great opportunity to be able to buy back the company, and they've been going gangbusters ever since and changed the name of the company from Leavetown.com to JetStream. So we talked a little bit about what the JetStream platform offers to small-time property managers as well as larger hotels, which is, he said, 80% of their revenue. But the new track they're taking is to provide a unique solution for small property management companies to be able to scale their short-term rental business. Along with that, he talked about some of the things that he projects forward as far as 5 to 10 years, what JetStream is going to look like at that point in time, and then shared a lot of insights pertaining to several books that he's read that have really changed his life and impacted him in a positive way. So I think, again, it was a phenomenal episode. I really like Emmanuel a lot. He's a very intelligent and very just a good person overall. And I think you guys are going to gain a ton of value from this episode. Jeff, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, JetStream, like you said, is a game changer. So I can't wait for you guys to listen to this podcast and then, grab as much knowledge you can about this because it's something that's up and coming. And I think in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years, it's going to be the tech company in the hospitality field. So I can't wait for you guys to listen.
Definitely. No, I couldn't agree more. And also, before we dive into the episode, again, we greatly appreciate you guys' support throughout the last several months. We've seen a significant uptick in our downloads as a result of you guys leaving reviews. So if you don't mind, prior to the episode, if you could just hop over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, it would be greatly appreciated. And it's helped us immensely as we continue to try to expand our reach and educate people about the commercial real estate industry. And obviously now also technology, as we're going to dive into this episode regarding commercial real estate technology. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. Well, good morning, Emmanuel. It's great to see you this fine morning.
Good morning, Raphael. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Oh, for sure. Jeff. Yeah. Yeah. So, and for those of you guys who are tuning in today, actually, Emmanuel and myself, we met at this technology conference in New York City back in October. It's called the CRE Tech Conference. And after having a great conversation with Emmanuel, we've been in touch over the last several months. And, I thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to have him on the podcast so he could share a little bit about his backstory, which is super interesting. And then also, the offering that they provides to the marketplace, which I think is a game-changing solution, especially in the hospitality space. So really excited to have you, man.
Yeah, thank you. It was a fortuitous meeting at CRE Tech. the way it all happened, and I won't get into the details, but it was really kind of unique the way it all happened. And I don't know if I believe in things are meant to happen, but certainly, yeah, there may be an element of this in the fact that I'm here today.
Oh, no, for sure. No. And we're honored to have you as well. So one thing we typically do when we first get started in these podcasts is we like to learn a little bit more about the other person. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, I think that'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm from Montreal originally, so East Coast, but I live in Vancouver, West Coast now in Canada, Canadian. And I studied mechanical engineering in university. So I graduated and I traveled for a year. And after the travel, I was out of money, so I needed to find a job. So kind of by accident, I landed as an HVAC consultant, which I frankly didn't really like. I spent 9 years doing that. There's parts of it I was really into the sustainability side and so on, but really just designing drawings, pipes and ducts for a living was the most horrific thing I could have imagined happening for my career. So I started a little consulting firm eventually, and I sold it to a larger firm for not much money because these companies are not worth a lot of money. And eventually, when I could, I exited that. So 9 years that I did that career. I exited with no plan, just I need out of this. I wanted to build, I was reading, books like E-Myth and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was realizing that I was in the worst quadrant. I was in the E employee or S self-employed, which is actually probably even worse than E quadrant, and I needed to move up the financial ladder, so to speak. When I left, my good friend, Mike, who's the founder of JetStream and now our chairman, and I'm the CEO, he invited me to join him in his little company, which I think I was the fifth in the business. And I bought a quarter of the company from him at the time. And we didn't even know what we were doing. At the time, we were trying to be an OTA, so an online travel agency, like a little booking.com or a little Expedia, with leavetown.com as our OTA, and still is our OTA. But we were trying to be like this Canadian, Grizzlies and Moose and West Coast theme thing with lots of content. The vision is we're going to score for SEO and then convert those readers into bookers. Totally flawed strategy from the start. But we tried it, and it probably took a year. So it was 2015 when I joined. It wasn't until 2016 that we sort of really started seeing what JetStream was about. So yes, we were signing up resorts and hotels with condos to push them onto the channels, onto leavetown.com. But in order to make money, we would actually secretly put their ads on VRBO. We would create ads, no API, just like a bunch of monkeys in the back end, essentially pre-software. And we would get inquiries and we would get bookings. And that's how we paid our bills while we tried to pursue our vision of creating this online travel agency. And eventually we sort of came out of the closet and started telling our customers, hey, by the way, we're putting you on VRBO and eventually Airbnb, which were channels these kind of hotel management co and resort management co's were not on. Their software just didn't integrate with Airbnb and Vrbo. And the answer wasn't negative. It was, wow, cool, keep doing that. And let's integrate with software so you can receive dynamic rates and availability. And that's when all of a sudden JetStream, like, oh, that's what JetStream's about. It's no longer about a little booking website on the front end. It's about being this back end distribution technology to help resorts and hotels put their assets onto new to them vacation rental marketplaces. And that was 2016, 2017. We were the first company to build this specific API with Airbnb at their request. We did a Series A. We raised about 1.2 million Canadian from some Canadian investors here in Vancouver. And we went ballistic. We had this huge blue ocean moment. It was like the one in a lifetime entrepreneurial blue ocean moment that you dream of. We're the first to be able to take standard hotel inventory and push it onto Airbnb, if you can imagine. So we expanded into the US and then expanded into Europe. So, I mean, we can chat more. I'll tell you more about the business, but that's kind of what led me to here, sort of by accident in my professional journey.
That's amazing, man. And the power of the reach through it, because again, you leverage those platforms that already have a very established presence in the marketplace. And then now you can offer your clients a unique perspective or a unique offering that historically they didn't have. And I imagine as we'll get into it through COVID, it's definitely been a very valuable offering for those hotels that historically probably didn't have that type of reach that now also can leverage those types of platforms through your platform. So that's
exactly.
Awesome, man.
Exactly. So it's been a great journey. And it's been a wild journey. I mean, you guys love business and so on. We actually sold the business in 2018 to an American company. And it was a 2-year earnout. I bought a sailboat in Fiji. I was going to go sailing for a few years. And then COVID happened. And at the very, very beginning, the first 2-3 weeks, it was the end of the world as we knew it. If you remember that moment, the parent company actually buckled hard, and so did we. Pretty much everybody in the travel industry, because we went from a 10 to 15 standard cancel rate to a 99% cancel rate in the space of 2 weeks. So we actually took the opportunity to repurchase our business from the American Co. 100% of the shares, which was a glorious moment, because pre-selling the business, we had venture capital in the business, which has stresses, and then we rebought the business with zero, with no venture capital. So we are now a completely profitable business, 100% employee owned, with no venture, on a clean cap table, which is probably like winning the lottery, frankly.
Yeah. There's a lot of when you have venture capital, there's a lot of strings attached. Like people always talk about, oh yeah, you become this big thing, and all you need to go is through your series, the different series, in order to raise capital. But they don't realize is that you're pretty much beholden to what they expect from you, and so having your own private entity now, where you kind of are the champion of your own destiny, I'm sure has been amazing.
It has. You're totally right. It's something that it's almost like now people talk about success in a startup as how much we've raised. That's the measure of success, which truthfully, I mean, it is a measure of like you got capital to keep executing, but it's really not the measure of success of a healthy business for most businesses. So I feel like we're lucky because I checked that off of my personal ambition goal, like, oh, we've raised capital, but I am in no hurry to do that again, because we had wonderful investors, and they're actually all advisors in our business today. We brought them back in as advisors. It's long-term relationships and mentorship, but there's definitely risks attached to venture capital,
for sure,
and stress, for sure.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. I know that you invested heavily in JetStream, but did you invest outside of JetStream? Is there any type of avenues that you took, or do you all in JetStream and nothing else? Or
great question, Jeff. I love that you asked that question. I'm part of the 0.1% of people who in the last 10 years have lost their shirt in real estate. Everybody's made money. So when I was 30, I'm 43 now. So when I was 30, it was 2006 or something like that. It was just at peak, and things were going guns blazing. So I bought a house I used to live in Kelowna in British Columbia. I bought a house in Kelowna, and a year later it was up 30%. I refinanced the thing with an unscrupulous mortgage lender, pulled more than I should have, bought another house, and then did a little real estate development there. And it was all it needed the city to approve it, and they said they would approve it. In the end, they didn't. That was the first whammy, and the second whammy was 2008. I essentially finished my project 6 months after 2008, and I lost my shirt. So I went personally negative, like 100 grand. And the thing is, when you go negative in life, like if you have money and you lose money on a deal, it sucks, it hurts. But when you go negative, your only way out is either personal bankruptcy or clawing your way out. And it took me 5 years to claw my way out of that hole, from salary, essentially.
Yeah, and I'm sure you weren't alone in that back in 2008. I mean, there's many people who had the similar experience. I mean, and I know when I was, I was still in high school at the time, but I remember my parents, they had refinanced too, because again, why not? I mean, you buy a property for, let's say, 200,000 or 400, 300,000, and all of a sudden a year or two later, it's double in price. I mean, why not? You could take it out and do what you need to with it. But, again, it was a pretty much a once in a lifetime type event, but I'm glad to hear that you were able to overcome that. And now you're stronger than ever in a very successful company that I'm excited to kind of dive in and learn more about. So one thing I wanted to ask you is that initial leap of faith, because a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they're either commercial agents, commercial investors, people within the commercial real estate industry. And a lot of them have transitioned away or are considering transition into something new. So could you tell us a little bit about that leap of faith moment for you from the HVAC contractor, or not contractor, I should say, but from the previous profession with the HVAC company to now going into the venture with your friend in Leavetown? Because I think that people would gain some value from that insight. Yeah. And then also about the hospitality industry. Why the hospitality industry? Because that's another thing. It's a very unique industry, and I don't know if you had any experience before then, so I'd kind of like to hear a little bit about that too.
Yeah, leap of faith. I mean, I was lucky in the sense that so there was a lot of lessons learned by going negative 100 grand and clawing myself out of that. Was it's very painful to do that. So it's almost like the yin and the yang, I swung completely the other way after that. As soon as I was able to, I sold my last house. I wrote a check for 17 grand to the bank when I sold my last house. And I moved to Vancouver, and I moved into a tiny little apartment. It was like a co-living situation with 6 other people. $500 a month was my rent, even though I was still making good engineering wages. So I completely simplified my life with the plan that I knew that with a simplified and low cost life, I could then do any leap I wanted after that, because I wasn't beholden to any big mortgage and so on. So that was like the first thing I did. And that took about a year and a half to kind of settle all that and really just pile on a bit of cash. But I was miserable. So I was miserable. So I needed to take the steps required. So cut down on expenses big time. I had an old Honda Civic that with 300,000 kilometers on it. So it was like super low cost of living. That gave me the springboard. Very miserable. So I had to get out. I had no plan. I really I need to get out, but I'll have a little cushion of cash, maybe like $30,000-$40,000 at the time. And that was going to be enough to find the next thing. So that's how I got out. The problem is if you're got the big mortgage and the big truck and the big this and that, it's hard. I also didn't have children, although I do in retrospect think that even with children, my plan was good. But obviously I will acknowledge that without children, I think I was more mobile and it was easier for me to do that. I also had a partner at the time, a new partner that encouraged me to do that, which was healthy. And we're still together and we're going to get married. We tried to get married twice now with COVID, but that's been delayed. Now, the hospitality side, that's my friend Mike. Mike we met paragliding at the top of a mountain, 4 years before he invited me to join the business. And he's a salesman like no other. So he was like, hey, he calls me matey, just join the business and we're going to go paragliding and we're going to go sailing and we're going to have all this fun in the world. It was an attractive proposition because it was a cool, tech, online travel, accommodation. Like what's not to like about that? Turns out we have had a wonderful time, but it turned out to be an insane push. Him and I just pushed so hard together. So it hasn't turned out into, hey, we're going to go paragliding and we're going to go sailing at all. But am I ever so glad? And I owe him, I really owe Mike the whole second half so far of my career. It's about 8 years now, because he mentored me. He was a tech entrepreneur. He had a successful exit in England prior to moving to Canada. So he got me personally out of, engineers are very much like, what's the problem to solve? I'm going to do the drawings. And he's a true business guy where he always thinks of like, there's this business, I need to put the components together to grow this business. And it was a mentorship process, informal, but and it probably took me 5, 6 years. I was COO I only became CEO 4 or 5 months ago. So yeah, he helped me elevate myself out of the weeds and into thinking of the business as a holistic with resources that you allocate appropriately.
That's amazing. Yeah. And the differing skill sets too. I think that's huge because I'm sure there's a lot of things that you're much better than him at. And there's other things that he's probably better at as well. Like similar to Jeff and myself, like when we decided to start the company Fidelity Development, it was because Jeff is an all-star when it comes to construction. He understands the different components of a building and how to build it from start to finish and keep it on track and on budget. And I'm more of the marketing and sales and digital marketing side of things as well. So finding the pair, I think has been immensely helpful in what we've been trying to do. And, obviously in your case, finding someone like that already has had success in the past and then jumping along with them is invaluable as well. So
it is 1 + 1 = more than 2. That's how we try to look at every deal we do. And it seems like it has worked for you guys, and that's what's happening. And it's same with us. But when you're a young person, you kind of need mentorship as well. You can make it all by yourself, but it certainly helps to have somebody that helps you along the way.
Speaking of the mentorship, that kind of gets me to the next question is the struggles. So you guys started out and I think it was in leadtown.com. Is that what you started with, right?
That's what we started with. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was in 2015.
That's when I joined. Mike had actually incorporated the company in 2012.
Oh, okay. And so during that time, like say when you joined, what was the struggles that you faced as you were helping scale the business? Can you give it? You can just touch base on a few. You don't have to go through.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea what we were doing. I don't think we had any idea. I mean, we knew what we were doing. We were trying to grow leaptown.com, but putting ads on Verbo to get bookings. That's what we were doing. There was a beginning of software. Mike had invested in the beginning, the beginning of our back end, which is still it, but now completely refactored from a technology perspective. And I had no idea what was what. I would say it took me a year to a year and a half to really wrap my head around what we're doing. But we were both drawing such tiny salaries that I wasn't really a burden on the company. I was useful and helpful, but I more than halved my salary in that transition. So those were some of the struggles, and running out of cash and loans from families and friends and the stress of all that.
Yeah. Jeff and I were just talking about that the other day. I mean, I'm relatively new in commercial brokerage. I've been at about 2.5 years now. So, coming from a software background, that was my background. I was a industrial engineer and then got into the software development space. And I was doing that for about 5 years or so as a consultant and developer. And, going from that to what I was doing in the commercial brokerage space, it was probably like 4 or 5 times less than what I was making before into the brokerage space. And so those struggles early on are just, it's part of the process. And even today, yes. I mean, when you're running an operation and running a business and it requires you to go out there and generate business, I mean, there's going to be ebbs and flows, and Jeff and I were talking about situations where, you know, in order to make sure the company was running effectively, there are situations where I may not draw a salary for a month. Or I may, have to move some money around in order to make sure we can meet the obligations. And that's something that over time you hopefully get to a point where that's not necessarily the case. But I feel like anyone who starts any entrepreneurial venture is going to face that in some capacity early on. And so, I think it's great that you've kind of shared that insight, because again, it's not an isolated incident in entrepreneurship. I think it's almost a given when you get started. So.
Oh, exactly. So I had, the big fat engineering salary left, and it was more than half. It was like 40% salary. And that was for 2 years until we sold the business to the American co. And then of course we had some windfall of money, but they also put us on again, a big fat salary, which was actually higher than my engineering salary before. Great, lovely. And then when we repurchased the business, we thirded I reduced to a third of my previous salary. So my personal, it's just been like this. With the tide, but now things are going well. So now we're back. I'm not back to where I was before, but that's the journey. But I always say, I don't work for salary. I work for equity. I work for shares and an exit. That's what I work. Yeah.
Because if you reinvest, and obviously there's a balancing act too, because I mean, again, you got to draw some to be able to survive, to sustain yourself. Yes. But, the more you reinvest in your business, the hope is that it's going to exponentially return you something in the next several years. And, I'm of that same mindset as well. As little as I can take out of my business, I will do it. Like if right now I'm just paying myself enough to cover whatever expenses I need to, basic expenses. And the hope is that I can reinvest within my business, grow my, the sales side, and then obviously leverage the income that I produce now to go invest in other types of properties or other companies or whatever. Right. So, I mean, I think that's a smart approach that most people should take, especially when they're considering starting a business.
Totally. As long as it's a business that has value at an exit. And that's why I left consulting engineering. Is probably all consulting businesses where you're trading hours, there's really not a lot of value in that business on the exit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as if you are the only one in that consulting practice, if you scale to a point where you no longer are the one giving that consulting advice, I'm sure there's some value there. But you're right, especially in the technology space where your leverage, you amplify the amount of. I mean, it's limitless the amount of reach you can get.
It is. That's right. So the multiplier in revenue is much higher on the technology side. Mm-hmm. So for I work hard in life. So for the output of work hard, I just want to maximize the return on the back end.
Oh yeah, no, and that's super smart. That is definitely a super smart approach. So. You talked a little bit about Levetown. So when you purchase back the company, did you change? Because again, it went from Levetown to now JetStream. Is that correct? So can you tell us a little bit about what JetStream is and what solution do you offer the marketplace?
Yes. So as we were evolving this back-end distribution technology, and this is 2017, 2018, what was happening is we were calling service departments in Barcelona or Amsterdam and saying, hey, we got this distribution tech, we can connect your software and put you on Airbnb and Vrbo. And then they would go and check out our website, levetown.com, and they'd see this pretty Canadian Rockies website with moose and grizzly on top. And there's this big disconnect. So we started working with a wonderful marketing consultant who still works with us today. And he helped us create the JetStream brand. In part, JetStream for a love of aviation of Mike and I, and that's how we met, but also JetStream, just the movement of air and particles, which is really the data moving in the back end. So for 2 years, my business card had two sides, Leavetown, JetStream, because all of our customers knew us, I mean partners, inventory suppliers knew us as Leavetown, but yet we were transitioning. So when we repurchased the business, that's when we it was a bit of we created the shellco to acquire the company, and then we amalgamated shellco and so on, and that became JetStream Hospitality Solutions Inc. when we finally stepped into our JetStream shoes fully. And that's how the transition happened.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And as far as the solution you offered, I think
yes,
elaborating a bit on that, I think would be helpful for people too, because, I've seen it in action as far as, our discussion, and I saw the graphic that you provided, and I think it's a game-changing software. But if you could elaborate a little bit on, what the value is for those
yes,
either hotels or other users within the software, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we continue still to do what I mentioned before. So we do back-end distribution tech for resort and hotel management costs. That's about 80% of our revenue. I consider that business segment to be our investors. They pay our bills while we develop the version 2 of our business, which we literally call V2 in the business. And this is what I really want to tell you about, because I think it is a game changer. You're using the right, I think it is. So what's happened is along the journey, at one point, it all started with one guy. He's now a friend, he's a customer and a friend, and he's a Canadian real estate developer, and he built a 15-room hotel in Sayulita in Mexico. And he tried a local management company, didn't work. He's not a hotel guy, he's a real estate developer, and he wants a return on his asset. So he approached us, he found us online, and he said, could you guys just do all of my marketing, all my distribution, all my guest comms? Because I should say, it's important for me to say at this point, JetStream does distribution tech, but also 2 layers of service on top. And that's what really makes us unique, I think, in the space. We create the content for the listings for our partners, like written content. We have writers, and then we respond to all guest inquiries 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have staff in Canada, Spain, and the Philippines to do that. All our own staff, even the team in the Philippines has shares in the business. So it's a pretty unique situation. So he said, could you just do all this for me? And that was the beginning of us now representing an asset, no longer as just an incremental distribution channel, but it's our job to sell this hotel every single night, which is a whole different ballgame, because now we're in control of pricing. So fast forward to where we are today, and this is the solution we offer now more and more to different types of partners, but realtors, I think brokers and real estate agents is our fastest growing vertical. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today, is so let's say you're a real estate broker, and we have two of these right now. They're beta customers from last year. Very, very happy, both of them, one in Cape Cod, one in Canmore in Canadian Rockies. They both sit in the middle of the real estate transaction, and they're being asked, hey, do you know of a local property management company to manage the property of the asset? So now both of them are property managers, but they're really powered by JetStream in the background. So JetStream does all distribution on all channels, including Booking, Expedia, Google, Holiday, Home2Go. We power their direct branded website. We do all guest responses, none of this, and then we partner with an on-site or local cleaning company as an outsourced third-party contractor to clean the units. And our technology does all of what I just told you, but also we're integrated with keyless entry solutions. So we put all keyless locks on the doors. We're integrated with some guest screening technology. So every guest that books goes through a full-on online, take a photo of yourself, take a photo of your picture ID. If they pass screening, we're partnered with a company out of England, backed by Lloyd's of England. They put £1 million of host liability protection, £1 million of damage protection behind the guest. So we've really created kind of the most tech-forward stack possible, and we're out there selling it to brokers and realtors to power their short-term rental business, where they don't really have to do much. And we do it under your brand. That's the part that's totally unique in the industry. So if you are a real estate agent or realtor and you want to have a short-term rental business, you can call it whatever you want brand, and we will distribute under that brand on all channels. We will power your direct branded website. We'll respond to all inquiries under that brand, all email, all phone inquiries, everything. And all of a sudden you're an STR. We charge you a fixed percentage for our services. You then charge your clients more, and you're going to be slicing somewhere between 5 to 10% off every transaction. And you own the relationship with the customer. We're a tool. It's not our customer, it's your customer. owner, I mean.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
to kind of like clarify that as well, I mean, essentially what you're doing is you're replacing the need to be a property manager. Because a lot of the times what happens, and I know people who manage short-term rentals here and really across this region, and what typically happens is they advertise everything on VRBO or Airbnb themselves, and they're always having to manage the relationships with all the customers. They're having to coordinate all the cleaning crews. They're having to do all these different things. And ultimately that takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of effort, that takes a lot of dedication to that section. It's very hard to be able to scale after a certain point. So what your solution I think is so phenomenal is that essentially it allows this software and what you guys offer to be able to manage that process. So now as a property management company, I could say, okay, I can either fill in some of the pieces if something's going wrong, but now it gives me the opportunity to now go scale. I can go out there and solicit more business to be able to grow this thing. And granted, you pay a flat fee for the service, but you're getting everything, you're getting a set percentage on top of that. And now you can increase the pie essentially.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Our whole thesis is there's three components to this affair. There's our specialty, there's the on-site boots on the ground, which doesn't have to be a fixed cost. It can be an outsourced code like we have going with our two initial partners. And then there's essentially the asset owner, the person who has the asset, who wants. So we focus on our core specialty. With us, there's no onboarding fee, there's no fixed cost. We're entirely a variable cost solution. We just take our fee per booking as a percentage, and that's it. That's very helpful when you're starting off, because if not with us, then there's two options. Either you do it all yourself, which will scale to maybe 2 or 3 units, and then you'll lose your mind. And is that really your core competency, or is there more money to be made selling real estate, right?
Yeah.
And then in the low seasons, you got to try to keep staff if you have staff, which is super hard, versus we're essentially like an AW. Like we're a ghost kitchen, essentially. We're centralizing all this tech and all this guest comms expertise in the cloud, which makes it much more efficient because we can spread all these fixed costs that we carry across multiple clients. So I think I'm so excited about entering this segment. We have other segments. We're doing this with hotels, like I told you, and we're doing this with large institutional hotel holders. But the realtor segment, I don't think is the one that's grown the fastest for us last year, because you guys really sit at the pinnacle of the transaction. The asset changes hands, and that's when people start asking questions. And now we can empower you to have a short-term rental business with no fixed cost.
Yeah, and it helps with a transaction as well, because a lot of times one of the hurdles for a lot of people is making sure they have the proper team in place before they execute the transaction. And so, our job as realtors is to make sure that we provide them with all the resources they can to make the best decision possible for them. And if we can provide that service on our end and through the JetStream platform, that could help us close more deals as well. So, I mean, again, it's a win-win situation for everyone involved. And I think it's a phenomenal platform. And that's why we were so excited to have you come on today to talk about it. So
thank you so much. And we power both multi-unit condo hotels or apartments within condos, as well as just traditional whole home vacation rental inventory. We have both on the platform.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I think Raphael said, this is game changing, but I want to emphasize like winning game changing things. So you guys are actually taking and turning that dial for all the, like you said, the end users, the one who owns the asset. And I want to highlight that's an amazing feat that you guys sounds like you're knocking it out of the park. And I'm excited to tell a few people that I know that has a lot of Airbnbs, hey, go check out JetStream. So, and speaking of that, over the next 5 to 10 years, what is the goals for JetStream? Where do you see you guys going? Are you going, moving into this direction or that direction? Where do you guys see you going?
Yeah, last year was the year of, because we only bought the business back, 19 or 18 months ago or something like that. So last year was a year of foundational technology build to integrate with all these other things like the keyless entry and so on. But also it was a year of, we put out strings into the marketplace. We put out strings to the single homeowners, to the realtors, to the cleaning companies who can partner with us, and to the big institutional real estate developers and so on. And to see which market segment, which string was going to pull the hardest. And then we were going to go in that direction. So the realtor string is the one that pulled by far the hardest. So hence, we've just made a company-wide decision that, okay, we're going to put all of our biz dev efforts on this segment in 2022. So where do I see the business in 5 years? I see what we're doing now, but bigger. I would like to be power. Right now, we power 5 white label brands. I would like to be powering 200 white label brands. And just more features, more technology. As we speak to the realtors, they go, "Hey, could you build a portal for my owners?" All these things. So we're constantly building, responding to their requests. So that's going to keep happening for the next 5-10 years. I just want to get very much larger at doing this. And I find a beautiful satisfaction in this, because what we're also doing is we're enabling the small guy to essentially, we're leveling the playing field, because you got the big Vicasas and Saunders and so on raising hundreds of millions of dollars and go public and SPAC, and they've built a JetStream tech stack internally. And now we're taking a different tack where we're enabling the small player to rise up to that technology level with no fixed cost. And as an entrepreneur, and I find extreme satisfaction, like genuine satisfaction in doing that. And I just want to keep doing that. I want to help more smaller entrepreneurs realize their dreams and get bigger and better and richer, frankly.
Oh, for sure. No. And that's the great thing about capitalism in general, is that you help enough people get what they want, and you're going to get what you want ultimately. And so,
Yes.
you're able to, make it a mutually beneficial experience for everyone involved. And I'm excited to see your guys' growth for the next 5 to 10 years. I think it's going to be pretty significant. So, but
I love the lofty goal that you set. You're saying 5 white labels, and now you want in 5 years 200. I love that. Like most people, some people will just be like, "Oh, let's times 10," but your times, to 200. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I
I
think
can't wait to see.
Go ahead, Emmanuel.
I just think it's very feasible.
It is.
I think we're probably going to sign up 15 to 20 this year in 2022. That'll put us at 25, and off we go. And we just put strings out. We did no marketing, no advertising. It just all happened and found us by chance. So yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I think
you built the foundation. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I think people need to understand, is that anytime you're going to start a venture or go execute on a vertical, you got to make sure the foundation is strong, because as soon as that foundation is ready to go and you're able to provide a proof of concept, it becomes a snowball over time, and I always recommend on this book to everyone that listens to the book, the audience, is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And the book itself references small, consistent actions done on a daily basis in a positive direction add up to huge results over time. And it becomes this type of snowball effect. And so I think that's where you guys are at, you're right at the cusp of an inflection point. And over the next several years, I think over the next several years, it's going to manifest itself. So that's awesome. So kind of go ahead.
You're totally right. You're totally right. It's incredible the vision you have for our business, because we all feel the same thing. Yeah. Congrats.
For sure. No, of course.
You're seeing it.
I am. Yeah, no, most certainly. And so kind of going on a different vein pertaining to books, one of the things that our audience, they're all voracious readers. And so what we typically ask our guests is to provide one of the most impactful books they ever read. And it doesn't have to be, commercial real estate related or tech related. If it was a book that provided you with a paradigm shift that kind of led you on a different direction, I think that would be beneficial if you could share that.
Yeah. I think, and this is a bit of an older book, I'm dating myself, but the book that really, I've read so many beautiful books that made me cry and all these things and stories, but in terms of like that orient your life in a way, I think, and I still have it, it's old, but The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman, 2005. That book, as I was sizing ducks and pipes for a living and realizing the convergence of technology and globalization and rise of middle class in all these other countries, I was like, I need to be part of that. I don't want to just be sizing ducks and pipes for the rest of my life. So that was probably the seminal book of my life that I still always think about. And then I partnered that with, and I mentioned already, the E-Myth and the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And those were the parts that made me realize, okay, if I want to be part of this shift that's happening globally in a way that's never happened in the history of humanity, I need to be in a better business that's going to give me higher returns than what I'm doing right now. So those are the 3 books for me. But The World is Flat, if you've never read it, even though it's an old one, I think there's been 2 updates to it since, that is a good book.
Yeah, I read it in college. I mean, it just goes to show the power that globalization has had on society as a whole. I mean, just 100 and something years ago. I mean, the opportunities were not available as they were today. So, if you don't consider what's out there for you, you may be missing the boat on, some unique opportunities that, weren't available for our grandparents. I mean, realistically, it's just not the same. So
That's right. And I think everything he wrote about has proven true, which is pretty incredible. And also now COVID and the shift of how we work, and the biggest shift in remote working and at home working, and the technology and the tools, it's mind-boggling to think what we're going through as a transformation. So it's like the world is flat has now met complete home working enabled through technology. I'm happy and excited to be part of that. To be, one little speck of dust in it.
And it was a trend that was already occurring, but it just was amplified through, COVID.
Yes.
And I think that, although I don't think we'll always just be working from home, I think there will be some sort of hybrid situation going forward. But to know that now people can't, you've been enabled to be able to do that. And there were a lot of people kicking and screaming, a couple of years ago. And now it's like, okay, everyone's kind of used to it at this point. So the change management and technology adoption has been, amplified probably 10, 20 years quicker as a result of what we went through over the last couple of years. And so, it has huge implications for, the workplace going forward.
And it will have implications for the type of real estate development that happens as well, I'm guessing, in terms of how you do mixed use and co-working. And it's exciting for you guys, I'm sure, as well.
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. So, Emmanuel, we really appreciate it. I love speaking to you and hearing about JetStream, especially, and how that's going to, and is already changing, the way that we do business. And I can't wait to see where you guys are in 5-10 years and follow along. But speaking of all that, we have CRE Treasure Chest, which is a repository of things that we like to give our listeners and our viewers. And we ask our guests to give something to us to give them out to free. And was anything that you can pops in your mind that you can give us to give them?
Yeah, I love that you guys do that. I've never seen that before. It's a real value add for your listeners, 100%. Yeah, so we've had the thought about this, and so I've submitted for you guys a PDF, I guess, that and it's a two-part thing. One is a story. It's a case study story about our realtor. He's a residential realtor in this case, based in the Canadian Rockies, and how he's now become a property manager without being a property manager enabled by JetStream. So it's a story. It's like a 2-3 page case study for your readers to read, maybe to be inspired. And then in terms of an offer for your listeners, sorry, not readers, for your listeners, the offer is, and we've never done this before, so it's not to say we won't do this in the future, but it's the world first offer for JetStream, is that if anybody wants to reach out, one thing we'll help you. If you have a property in mind, we can do financial projections, because we have a lot of tools and data to do that, as well as even just legislation review and see the possibility for STR. And then we'll offer 50% off our normal commission for the first 3 months of working together.
That's amazing. No,
wow,
that's game changing. And I will say, I actually, you connected me with the gentleman you're referencing in that story, and I had the opportunity to talk to him about it. And he said it's been a game changing, for his business on the property management end. And, I spoke to him personally, so I can attest to what you're referencing within that PDF.
Raphael, I forgot that you spoke to Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might explain why you're so in tune exactly with what's going on in our business. So it's all coming together now.
No, and I do research too. I mean, obviously, we've been in touch for quite some time now. But I spoke to Jonas, and he spoke very well of your guys' service, and he sees the potential for him as he's starting to scale his property management company as well. So I guess I'm trying to say the same thing that you're saying. It really is a game-changing solution.
Great.
Awesome. So really, Emmanuel, we greatly appreciate your time. We know you're super busy, especially in this crazy environment. You guys are looking to scale your operations. One thing we typically ask at the end of the podcast is to say, look, if someone wants to reach out to you, if someone wants to get in contact, learn more about the solution itself, how can they do so?
Yeah, well, great. Thanks. Our JetStream website is jetstreamtech.io. So that's just our general website. My personal email is Emmanuel, EMMANUEL @jetstreamtech.io. I'm on LinkedIn. always keen to connect for whatever reason, whether it leads to a business connection or networking, mentorship. If you have questions, I'm available on all 3 channels anytime.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll attest as well. Like, he's very responsive. So if you send him an email or something like that, he will get back to you very quickly. You know,
I will. If you send me an email, I will promise to get back to you promptly.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's the hospitality, and that's the hospitality.
It
business.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, Emmanuel, again, we greatly appreciate your time. Again, we know your time is valuable, and we do greatly appreciate all the insights you shared today. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate if you could like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, ensures more and more people can hear this message. If you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., we would greatly appreciate if you could leave a 5-star review. We've seen a significant uptick in our downloads as a result of you doing so. So if you could take a few seconds right now just to go to the podcast, drop us a 5-star review, we would greatly appreciate it, as we know it's going to help us amplify our reach within the broader sphere. So again, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.